Is agentic AI the solution to healthcare's interoperability challenge? Well, my next guest believes that is actually the case. And I can't wait for you to hear his explanation of why maybe we should be investing more in that technology rather than data standards and APIs. Let's get to it. Hello, Colin Hung here for Healthcare IT Today, and I am at the PocketHealth headquarters. I am super excited to sit down with CEO Rishi Nayyar. Him and I are going to talk about their new PocketHealth Conductor platform, which is an agentic operations platform. I'm going to ask him to explain what that is. I'm going to ask him to talk about some of the benefits their clients have already been seeing as a result of implementing this solution. And I'm going to finally ask him a question that I should have asked a long time ago, and that is the origin story of PocketHealth. Rishi, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Colin. Great to be here.
I'm excited to be here at the PocketHealth offices, beautiful facility. It's rare that I get a chance to do these kinds of things in person at someone's office. So thank you so much for the hospitality.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here and share a little bit more about what we've been building here at PocketHealth.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to diving into some of the new developments that you have. But you know what I realized, Rishi, is that all the times I've interviewed you, I've never really asked you any questions about the origin story. How did PocketHealth start? Can you give us a little bit of...
Yeah, it started in a very innocuous way. My brother, who's our co-founder and CTO, was in the Bay Area in California playing tennis. He hurt his ankle. One thing led to another. He's getting an MRI and an X-ray, and they hand him a CD-ROM at the end. And I think that kind of stunned him. It stunned him because it really highlighted this inefficiency in the system, though small in scale, at least in that moment. The idea that there was this like manual transfer, the clerical staff had to burn it when they could have been doing other things. The patient, he had to take a taxi to get it and everything there. And it really highlighted this idea of like, okay, there's a lot of administrative inefficiency. And we said, okay, look, we could solve a lot of these. Let's start with that first problem. So we started building an image exchange system. This is way before AI. And then things have really, I would say, snowballed from there, as I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Yeah, so I mean, so it's born out of an experienced problem.
Exactly, and one that we felt acutely as patients, which is a side that's often ignored in medical software.
And now over the years, of course, you've expanded upon that core idea, and you're in so many different areas now, including, you know, here, obviously a lot of people exchange their images now and are able to get their images and other data through your system. I mean, every time I talk to someone who's used PocketHealth, they're always talking very positively about that experience. So, I mean, was that kind of the goal out of the gate for this?
It was, but I would say it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think that we're very lucky and grateful that so many patients have been able to get value. So many thousands of healthcare providers have been able to get value. But from our perspective, it's just the beginning of the journey. You walk into a hospital and I don't think you're gonna feel like, oh, this is the most efficient place and everyone is working at the top of their license and there's no forms being filled and there's no faxes and there's no manual work. I think we're far from that, and that's when I will say the goal has been met.
Now, we're here today because you guys are announced or have out there some really interesting new technology. I think you call it an agentic operations platform. I think it's called Conductor.
Yeah.
Is that right? Can you tell me more about that? Like what spurred the creation of that, and why was now the right time for you to launch this?
It was really a confluence of, we've always as a company been really, really close to, I would say like the operational problems on like both sides of the front desk. Obviously we spent a lot of time talking about on the patient side, but on the other side of the front desk, the clerical staff member, the operational staff member, the person doing revenue cycle, eligibility checks, the reading room assistant, and so on. There's so many workflows there that are so manual. So what we imagined is that we had our eye on this problem, is what I would say, for nearly a decade. And then towards the last couple of years, we began to see generative AI get good enough. These like kind of the ability to manipulate a screen, the ability, like the voice models, the ability to read unstructured data like faxes, start to get good enough, or we could at least draw that line that it will get good enough, that if we built a harness that could stitch these things together, then all of a sudden you're creating somewhat of like a automated operational staff member. You have eyes, you can see it, you can read a screen, you have a mouse and keyboard, you have a mouth and ears, so you can like talk over the phone or email and listen back to what someone is saying. And we felt that if we could build that and build it in a way that worked really well, that was very reliable, that could follow any SOP, then all of a sudden you have this very, very powerful platform. We began working on that, and then at RSNA we released the fruition of those efforts, which is PocketHealth Conductor, which is a very powerful general purpose healthcare agentic AI platform.
And what are some of the things that people would be able to do with this platform? And I know you mentioned that it's quite interactive. You've got it is very smart. I'll just use that in air quotes. But what are some of the specific things, operations that someone at a radiology or any other kind of practice would be able to do?
Yeah, the low-hanging fruit that we're seeing, and I do believe in a few years this will be table stakes and we'll be working on harder and harder and harder problems, it spans everything around the care. Whether that care happens to be an imaging exam or a primary care visit, but it's all the work around it. So you could think about managing intake, so managing the referral really seamlessly, then managing whether there's protocoling that needs to happen and even executing on a lot of the protocoling itself independently, then handling eligibility, handling prior auth, and just already so far I've mentioned hundreds and hundreds of people worth of teams in a large health system. Then continuing on into scheduling, this is a common use case, coordinating with like the internal resources and the external patient or their provider to get things scheduled. Then appointment readiness is a really common area. Actually, the first application of Conductor back in the day was in appointment readiness. Like think advanced appointment reminders that incorporated really nuanced prep instructions and things like that. And then after the exam, we've been building out workflows for physicians to contact other physicians, like reading room assistant workflows or critical results communication. So it's a wide variety of things, but it all goes back to really, okay, it's a general purpose platform. It can see, hear, talk, read, et cetera. It can navigate a screen. It can log into Epic, Cerner, et cetera. And what do you do with that? And we look to our customers to tell us what are the problems that they need solved.
I'm starting to get a clear idea of why you called it Conductor. Well, that's quite a lot of pieces that it's trying to navigate and stitch together.
Each one of these pieces that I mentioned, or even parts of these pieces, 2 years ago would be an entire company on its own. So just so folks understand like where the curve has gotten in terms of AI and its capabilities, and then what power can come from putting those on top of a harness that is very reliable, you can really do a lot very quickly.
Now, I read somewhere that you're very pro on AI and the technology, especially Agentic. And one particular problem in healthcare, you mentioned in the statement was interoperability. And the statement was basically around the fact that Agentic AI may be the solution to interoperability, whereas I'm sure today, when people think about interoperability, it's mostly a standards or an API issue. Why do you say that Agentic AI might be part of that solution?
The key reason is because Agentic AI can do the interoperability work that humans are doing now. So right now, if you have two systems that don't speak to each other, but they need to, a human plays that role. Oh, I look at this work list and I open up Meditech or Cerner, and then I do XYZ task based on the results on the work list. But what are you leveraging in both situations? You're leveraging the GUI, the graphical user interface, like the screens. Agentic AI can do the exact same thing. It doesn't need to worry about, hey, are they on a common standard? Do these interfaces kind of label objects or fields in a similar way to each other? Are these the same file formats, or do I need to convert them, and so on and so forth? Humans right now are dealing with all that messiness, but these are reliable SOPs. How you look at that report and then what you do in Meditech afterwards, or Cerner, just to follow that same example, is a reliable written down SOP. There's only a couple of different branches on that tree, and there's only so many ways you can do it. So then it can mimic that. And then if you can mimic that, all of a sudden you can have systems that never spoke to each other being able to speak to each other. And that really unleashes a very, very powerful set of capabilities that enable all these end-to-end workflows to do. Because I don't know too many complex workflows at health systems that involve just one screen. And you need to be able to hop into multiple different systems.
It's interesting you say that, because we've had some discussions around the fact that because agentic or just AI in general has gotten so good, you may not need to discretely define all the fields anymore because, hey, if you can understand the facts, then surely you can understand a data stream coming from another source. So to your point, maybe it doesn't have to be exactly the same or properly labeled field. As long as it's consistent, then the AI can pick that up and then automatically figure out what that field or what that data really
Exactly, and consistent enough. I think the other key reason why this type of front-end scripting, it's called robotic process automation or macros back in the day, the reason it never really took off is because it was extremely brittle, meaning the inputs that I was looking for had to be reliably in the same place. They couldn't be a couple pixels apart. It couldn't reason. And also creating these scripts was extremely time-consuming and costly. All of that's changed. And now we can very cost-effectively build very flexible and resilient scripts that can self-heal.
This isn't an endorsement for totally unstructured data, but of course, what you're saying is that maybe we don't have to be so rigid in our approach of exchanging data anymore because we have these powerful tools.
Exactly. I think we can have data kind of flow and morph into the state that is most relevant for like its most popular use case. I guess I would say that. And then the interoperability will quote unquote sort itself out with the agentic AI pieces that leverage it.
So, obviously there's a lot of players in the health IT space, right? And I've always watched some of the things that PocketHealth has done. I've always wondered, like, why haven't organizations like the Epics and the CERs of the, Epics and Oracle Healths of the world and other EHRs, why have they not kind of really gone as far as you have in this sort of conductor-like areas?
It goes back to just architecture, motivation. When you think about an EHR or a PAC system or whatever it happens to be, they're systems of record, meaning they are meant to be consistent stores of like, where is the ground truth? Very valuable role. You need that in a health system. In fact, agentic AI couldn't work without some sort of sense of like, where's the ground truth? Where am I going back to constantly? Where are the files? But those are point in time. Work to be done, orchestration, longitudinal work is a completely different problem space. So to imagine like where does the logic live around an SOP for how you protocol like a CT abdomen? And that protocoling journey could involve needing to reach out to the referring provider to get additional clinical context and things like that. So from that perspective, I think it's easy for folks who are familiar with the architecture and what these companies are good at to imagine that these types of jobs that are very complex, where the SOP varies dramatically, not just provider to provider, but like service line by service line and then procedure by procedure, they're not set up for that. EHRs are meant for consistency. They are staffed in a way that they can't consume very, very complex SOPs or pathways or automations, because if they were, then these automations would have been set up a long time ago, in the pre-AI world. They never were. Longitudinal work doesn't sit well inside of an EHR. You need the EHRs to do what, in my opinion, they're good at. And it's the same role that other systems of record play in other industries, like the role that Salesforce will play inside a sales org, or that NetSuite would play inside of a finance org.
Rishi, how would you respond to a healthcare leader who might have been told that maybe it's not safe to fully automate or AI enable a patient-facing or patient engagement style of operation?
The technology is only as good as its SOP. So it's implementing an SOP. If the SOP is firm, it's built thoughtfully, the AI will implement it and it can perform a wide variety of tasks extremely safely. But that said, in any implementation, whether the leader buys into that or not, who we're typically working with is the staff on the ground. And they need to be bought in as well. And in our experience, the only way to do that is you go slowly. You crawl, walk, run, while we know that it'll be able to do a full end-to-end patient-facing use case. We see that every single day with our customers. That's not how day one of the go live looks like, and day 30 looks a lot more like that. Day 60, we're probably there. So from that perspective, I think that what I would tell leaders is that the tech is there, but you need to apply it towards use cases that you can build an SOP around. But that is the majority of use cases.
Now that Pocket Health Conductor has actually been deployed at some of your clients, what are some of the results that those clients have seen?
So the nature of what the results are highly attuned to what is the actual workflow that we're deploying, we're automating. As you can imagine, for an inbound calling use case, metrics we'll look at is how many calls are deflected. We're looking for high 90s there. What's the hold time? We're looking for close to 0 there. What's the patient satisfaction rating? We will want to do that for every workflow that involves a patient, where the patient does a satisfaction score at the end of that. And we're seeing all of those hit numbers for the use cases that we're deploying that we're very happy with. And then those staff are able to move on to working on genuinely other, what I would say is much, much higher value tasks inside the organization. So obviously those metrics vary based on what workflow it is. Each workflow almost feels like a custom project for the customer. We're obviously deploying it using the platform that has been pre-built and pre-tuned. But obviously then we have to implement the SOP, which varies significantly from provider to provider for good reason.
So Rishi, if someone's listening and watching this and they're really not sure where to get started, where would you recommend they take that first step?
I think the best place to start is take an accounting of your current operations, see what are the high volume tasks that are maybe repetitive in nature that you can build an SOP around. Maybe there's a lot of labor, ideally skilled labor that is spending time working on it, or that is bottlenecking like a key workflow that is important to the organization. I guarantee you that list will be very long. Just before talking to any vendor, make that list, but make sure it fits all the criteria I just mentioned. That basically leads into like, it's valuable work that can be automated. You'll end up with a list that the title can be that. And then you can go and meet with vendors and say, look, I need this done. I need it done end to end. And then learn about, okay, what happens in escalations? Do you do my SOP? Do you come in with your own SOP? And then begin that discovery process, but certainly start with no more than 2 workflows to begin with. You can select a platform of choice. That's not a problem. But it's very much a new world that we're in, and there's no rush to kind of get all the way to the end now. But I highly encourage folks that there is a cost to not even getting to the beginning now.
Yeah, let's go down that path since you kind of mentioned it. So, we've heard a lot of times that, for healthcare organizations, it doesn't pay to be the pioneer. However, it also is potentially dangerous to be the laggard. So, as we look a couple of years from now, what do you see as the consequence of someone who maybe waited too long to look into this type of automation and AI technology?
It's a great question, Colin. You'll see it in the metrics very quickly. And I don't just mean metrics around efficiency, throughput, revenue, P&L at the end of the day. I also mean metrics that providers pride themselves on. Patient safety, patient experience scores, provider experience scores, referral patterns. We'll be moving into a world where, if the only way for you to book a reservation was to, fax the restaurant. That restaurant, unless it had, 3 Michelin stars, might not be very popular. And that's an obvious example, but we are moving into a world where these things will very quickly become table stakes, that patients will expect to call and be able to talk to someone immediately, not stay on hold, to not have to fill out a print off and then fax a form to do XYZ scenarios. So the scores across all of these metrics, including the soft metrics, will immediately begin to degrade relative to the peer group. And that's not just numbers on a page, that has real consequences to patient safety, patient outcomes, how providers feel about how you're offering care in the community, and a whole host of other things.
Wow, I mean, you paint a pretty stark picture there. And I also like what you said before around making sure that you don't have to try to automate everything right out of the gate. Automate the workflows that are worth automating. I mean, the high value ones, as you put it. I really like that approach. And I think if people take that approach, they can see some of these results that your clients have already started to see.
Definitely, and also for new technology, you always want to start where there's a really good business case paired with like a very good patient experience or provider experience use case. You don't want to start with like the tougher sell. The tougher sell can happen, next year or the year after. Start with something that really is commensurate with the risk reward, because people will perceive risk in doing something new, as they rightfully should. So the reward needs to be commensurate. You can't have a high risk thing where the upside is like an improvement in a mildly interesting workflow. It's just not, it's not worth it.
Well, Rishi, we're here at your office. I have to ask you this question. Without giving us any spoilers, is there anything exciting that you're working on that we can expect from PocketHealth over the next 6 months?
I think we are all in on Conductor. It's a platform that will carry us forward for many, many, many years, if not over a decade. So what we're spending a lot of time on is, one, getting as many deployments and proof points up as possible, but then constantly generating our own new use cases to demonstrate to the world just how powerful a platform like this can be. Genuinely, our engineers are pushing new use cases out on a weekly, or if not weekly, bi-weekly basis, for us to showcase to the world what is possible when you have a harness stitched with very powerful underlying capabilities and put it towards a problem like operational healthcare.
Rishi, final question for you. Where can people go to learn more about PocketHealth?
Honestly, Google PocketHealth, go to PocketHealth.com. You can reach out to me directly. And what I really encourage folks to do is at least explore. There's a lot happening in healthcare right now. It's extremely exciting. It's also scary at the same time. The more research you do independently before you talk to any vendor, the more you'll be able to separate fact from fiction and be able to have a really productive conversation whenever you are ready for that conversation.
Well, really appreciate your time today and all your insights, and thanks for being on the program.
Great, thanks, Colin. Pleasure as always.
Hey, I really want to thank Rishi for sitting down with me and for hosting us here at the PocketHealth headquarters. I really found his advice on only taking 2 or 3 of the workflows to automate the high value ones anyways, rather than trying to tackle all of it. Because as he said, it's very tempting when you have a new technology to kind of go whole hog. But his advice I thought was very sound. Just take the 2 or 3 at the beginning, get those done well, and keep moving on and build that momentum. Very sound advice. And hey, if you've made it this far in the video, we would really appreciate it if you mash that like button and click subscribe. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.